Welcome back to the vlog. Matt changed the oil in the car this day, talked about some football. I got to drive the truck by myself for the first time. It was good.
This is kind of insane. Besides its parking spot, and I guess going out to the drag strip because it's a dirt road, this thing is basically never touched dirt. It's insane how much dust gets up under there. And then this one, unlike the truck, is really tight. So I don't know if I'd have much fun trying to take this off and clean it by itself. But yeah, that's a lot of dust. This shows how stiff the suspension in this car is. It's kind of funny. If you put the jack a little bit further back, you basically have it jacked up just like a NASCAR. But obviously that's the only way to get under there to get to the oil plug without a lift. And yeah, I prefer to do everything myself because I don't trust people. And also because we had a rental when I was working at Enterprise, where when they were changing the oil, they were rushing and didn't put oil back in it. And I've heard of that happening. That happened to someone, a family friend of ours, in the 90s. And they started it, drove it out in the lot for him to come pick it up, and had it running for 2 minutes before they realized it, and they drove it back in before they put the oil in it. So it's 2 or 3 minutes of running it with no oil. It was probably not too far from possibly breaking or seizing up, and they just gave it back to him. But yeah, plus for the same price, I can get Royal Purple oil instead, the same as when I if I brought it somewhere and had it done, I'd get cheap oil and pay the same price, or probably even more than I would to do it with Royal Purple myself. See, and this is a very fun oil change compared to most things I do, because it's got this stupid thing. And yeah, it's still, even with it jacked up, it's quite tight. It's kind of interesting, because the Jeep, it's I don't even have to jack it up or anything. My Blazer had to put on ramps, but this is too low to put on ramps because all this starts to hit the ramp too quick. Oh God, Megan did a number on that thing when she hit that curb not that long ago. Oof. Here's always the fun part, because if you do it when it's hot, it drains a lot quicker and better. But then you burn the crap out of yourself with the drain plug. Yeah, now it's time to lower it so it's level while it drains while I get the filter switched. Another fun tip, for those of you who have never accidentally stepped on a creeper and went rolling when you didn't want to, put it where you can't step on it on accident. And then the fun deal, when stuff starts to get old, as you can see, that one little prong is broke off, so the filter doesn't come with it, so you gotta put it down there and get it popped in that end first, instead of having it attached to that and put the whole thing in. These new, I don't know, they're a little bit, I guess they're easier to dispose of, but they're kind of weird. But they do come with a nice new gasket too. And even this bugger is really hot to touch. Then you also have weird things like this, where the notches are offset so it can only go in one way. Because it matters if this is kind of not pointed the direct way. I wonder, because yeah, I think I've tried this before, but none of them quite line up any other direction. Which, like I said, that's mildly pointless. Oh, and then I had it, and now God damn it. Stupid thing. There we go. Another interesting thing. When you buy these, those stickers don't stay on very good. Both the one in this and in the Jeep are attempting to come off really bad. I don't know if it's heat, dust, a little both. It's kind of annoying. This is kind of another thing I find interesting on this. I'm assuming this is to get air, a little bit of air up in there. But those, as you can see, catch on. It's mostly when you get deep snow, but I've actually changed oil in the winter and had this thing full of ice. So there, yeah, it's a little obnoxious. And here's the super fun part. Trying to move that without spilling it. It's always a blast. I actually did really good, as you can see, until I tried to dump it in the bucket. And because it's so full, it was a little bit wider than the bucket, unfortunately. So you might have saw this. Nathan got walkie-talkies again. Just like at Christmas, he's picking up random people. This time someone was talking about a trailer. The ones you got at Christmas, I think. Okay, permission to land on the runway. You're picking up airport stuff.
I think it goes everywhere.
Well, yeah, it supposedly has a 10-mile radius. The airport's probably only like maybe 5.
And I know these could talk to everybody else.
But yeah, you got ones at Christmas, and some other kids had ones. Those weren't as longer range, but yeah, same thing's happening again. All right, so for those of you that have never used Royal Purple, it is purple. And the funny thing is, once it's poured, probably even by the time I pull the dipstick out to make sure it's properly filled, it will already not be purple. It's kind of interesting. Apparently, I'm shaking quite bad. It's quite hot, haven't hydrated. Probably should alleviate that problem. That's another thing that's kind of interesting for those of you that have never changed your own oil or checked like invoices to see how much oil you use. 3.6 liter, same with the Jeep, uses 6 quarts. The 4.3 I had in my S10 Blazer used 5.5. The 4 liter in the Explorer uses 5.5. I'm assuming the TRX is probably gonna take like 8. Who knows? Don't know yet. But yeah, it's kind of fascinating because engine size really has nothing to do with how much oil you use, because obviously a 4.3 down to a 3.6. In theory, that should drop it to 4, 4.5, you know, if you just went by displacement, but nope. And another interesting thing, I've been like I don't close my camera, I just stopped the video, and I've been tossing it right here. And it's kind of interesting, I set it down. It's insane, it brings in enough light to actually just show orange. It's kind of impressive how much light that camera will manage to bring in from, in this case, literally nothing. Not only shade, but up against a, and I mean, it's not like thin fabric either. It's like, it's meant to be comfortable. So that's kind of intense. So right now we have about an hour and a half worth of time on the GoPro. And we have the dog harness. And we're thinking about hooking it up to the dog and doing like a day in the life of the lab. We should have done it yesterday when there were people around that would get him active. But it might just turn into him laying around lazily. Aw, Bud, are you, what? Are you mean to the doggy? Look at him. He ran off from you. Hi, Bud.
Look at me.
And now we got my little oil change booklet, and I'm going to perform an experiment. Because back when I worked at Enterprise, so let's get this to the oil change. Because Chrysler products, back in those days, because okay, vehicle info, it says hold OK to reset. Back, you'd put the key to run without actually starting it, and then you would put the gas to the floor 4 times. So it sounds like it worked because it did the ding. Let's see. Yeah, that still works. I mean, there's a much easier way to do it through the dash, but the old-fashioned pedal trick still actually does it. That's kind of neat. I sort of didn't expect it to, because what's the point of keeping that when you can just go, ooh. But yeah, it's kind of cool that actually still works. It's kind of neat, because that's what you have to do in the Jeep still, but it's kind of a neat thing for people that have experience in the past, because that's another thing with places, like a lot of the lube places would never reset them in our vehicles, so I had to know how to do it in basically all of them. That's the Chrysler and I believe Chevy. Chevy might be 3, but I think Ford went to the dash display thing when I was there, and that was the only way to do it in those. Not totally sure, but yeah, that's kind of neat. You can still do that. Okay, so before I put the jack away, I wanted to show you something funny. For those of you that have never done this, there's this, I saw this meme reel where this guy was like, my neighbors get mad about my exhaust on my loud car. And then it's like dark. I mean, he probably wasn't actually doing it in the middle of the night because that'd be really mean, but he's like, he's dragging 2 floor jacks. And he's like, this is gonna make my loud car sound quiet. And it's like, I mean, like it full on rumbles the ground if you can't hear that. And it's funny because it's like, especially if you're dragging 2, that probably actually would be louder than the TRX. So quick sports tangent if Megan leaves us all in the same video. I don't see how you can not love football. Because it's like yesterday in college, you had the 6 and the 8 go down to unranked, the 25 go down to an unranked, 21 beat 9, what was the other one? Like 24 beat 17, I think there was one other one where like a 20 beat a teen. But it's kind of interesting because it's like you get those upsets. Then right now it's like, you know, Bengals defending Super Bowl champs, 5 turnovers in the game, playing horrible. Still, because with the division rival game, end up in a close game. And then their long snappers almost misses the holder altogether on the extra point that would have given them the win. Now it's going to be going to overtime. And then you've got like the Bears beat the Niners, which it's like the Niners are very overrated. People are like, oh God. And then it's like they have a new quarterback from NDSU, who it's like last guy that came out of NDSU that was supposed to be this like major great guy has been on like what 3 teams now and never done anything. He has a Super Bowl ring as a backup, but it's like his back or like as from an injury, but like his backup had to go win the Super Bowl and they needed an illegal formation that didn't get called to win that Super Bowl. But yeah, like, you know, the Bears were supposed to be horrible and it's just like, but the thing that makes it most interesting is like it's not like hockey and basketball where it's 82, and I think basketball is 84. It's also 82, one of the two. And then you've got baseball's 162. Like all these things with those huge seasons, you have one major upset first few games of the season. Like that does not matter. It never, you know, I mean, it might come down to one game at the end, but you have 80 some games to make up for it. Like a loss early in the, like, you know, if you're a number 5 in college and you lose and like there's 2 undefeateds and then 2 teams that have like had a harder strength of schedule. Like you don't even have a shot at the playoffs from one loss that happens this early in the year. Like Alabama almost losing to Texas, which I would have loved I would have become a Texas fan over that. That would have been awesome. But yeah, like, and then like here with this Steelers-Bengals game, it's like if the Steelers manage to upset the Bengals, like that's a division game. That could be what comes down to who wins this division. And I mean, it's like with these shorter seasons, and then like I said, just crazy things that happen so often that you don't expect at all. Because I mean, like defending Super Bowl champs, like the Bills are really, really good. But I mean, I don't think anybody's picturing a blowout. You know, I mean, obviously the Bills are good enough. It's like, oh yeah, they could beat them, but not just like they manhandled them. And it's like, you know, and like I said, with a short season, like every game matters. And you might be like, oh, it's week 1. Yeah, and I mean, it's like, let's say the Rams now turn around and don't lose again. But I mean, that's the thing. That could still be, like, that could be the loss that loses them the first round bye in home field, or loses them the division and makes them a wild card. It could also be the one loss. You know, I mean, obviously, if they lose that enough games to miss the playoffs, you can't really look at one. But that's also like a combination. It's momentum, and then, like, you know, you start off with bad momentum, and then that's like that leads to like another loss or maybe 2. Like that could be the momentum killer, and then you miss the playoffs by 1 game. Like you could have it be any of those early games, and then like what other? The Texans, who it's like with their debacle and the Deshaun Watson thing and all that. I haven't seen the final yet, but it was 2020. You're tied with a team that like was a playoff caliber team, but Wentz made sure they didn't make the playoffs. But yeah, like last I seen, it's also in overtime. But like with the defense they had and the running game they had, no matter who they had at quarterback, and Matt Ryan's an upgrade from Wentz, they're in overtime with a team that a lot of people probably think was going to be the worst team in the league this year, or like in the 3 or 4 worst, and one of the teams that was probably, you know, considered, you know, easily a playoff team, probably a shot at like making a fairly deep playoff run, like AFC Championship or so, is tied with like one of the teams that people were expected, and in overtime with one of the teams expected to be the worst. And the Bears were also a team that was expected to be the worst, and the Niners were like, some people are picking them to win the Super Bowl. It's like that's like I said, like with the other sports, their seasons are so long. I mean, a team could be, I mean, you're probably not if you're that bad to go 0-10, but you can start off 0-10 in any of the other sports, and then if you can like win 3/4 of your games from then on, you're still going to be the best team in the league, probably, or for sure, pretty much, because you know, like you're like in the NBA, there's teams that blow 500 that make the playoffs. Same with hockey. So, and hockey, they do a point system because of the commonality of ties. But yeah, football's pretty. Definitely, like, I mean, I guess if you're not into sports at all, but if you're just into sports as a generality, football is definitely the most interesting. But yeah, like really quick on the flip side, I kind of didn't even think about this. Back to the longer seasons, like even baseball shortened COVID season where the Dodgers won a World Series. Yeah, they needed an asterisk season to win it. Same with like the Lakers. It was like that season was the garbage LA teams winning, like because it's like, oh, you get a bubble and you have to do the playoffs all different, and Like, you get a bunch of time off first to rest because LeBron is now old and washed up and hurt all the time. But, like, because, yeah, the Rockies in that shortened 62-game season started off where it was like they were dominating the division. I think it was like 16-3. And it was like, they can't, with that shortened season, you can't miss the playoffs. They still missed the playoffs. So it shows, like, if a season's long, and then, like, also there was a year when the Rockies started off, like, I don't even remember, like, through, like, 50 games, they were tied for the best record in baseball, or had the best record in baseball, fell apart, missed the playoffs. So it's like, that's, like, there's also the flip side where it's like, even if you start hot with those super long seasons, it doesn't mean anything because it A, gives the other teams a chance to catch up, and B, gives you a chance to fall apart. And I mean, yeah, in like football, there could pretty easily be an injury. It's like you could be sitting at 9 or 10-0 and lose your quarterback for the season, and then miss, like, you know, lose out and miss the playoffs. But yeah, it's just those sports with super long seasons don't really have drama till the, like, last 10 games. So it's like football, like, you know, there's a lot of times there'll be somebody locked into the playoffs with like 4 or 5 games, like at least like 4, 5, 6 games left, and sometimes home field will get wrapped up with like 3 or 4 to go. But like, I think it was last year, there was only one AFC team locked in with 2 games to go, and then like they were talking about it, how it's like the Chargers Raiders game. If it would have tied, they both would have made the playoffs. If the Chargers win, I think is what it was. Well, whoever it was, there was one of them, if they won, they went in the playoffs. And if the other team won, neither of them did, and the Steelers gave the Steelers a tiebreaker to get them into the playoffs. Like, you're almost never going to even have to worry about a tie at all in those sports with tons and tons of games. So that's another thing that's interesting. But that's another thought, is the NCAA announcing they're going to a 12-game playoff. Like, now one loss isn't, but that's another thing, though, that I think it's in the 2025 season. So I don't know if that's like when the playoffs start, because like they'll start in January. So I don't know if it means like the playoffs that will start in 2025 or the regular season of 2025. But either way, I don't know why you'd wait that long. But also, like, because, you know, like Alabama, if they would have lost to Texas and then won out, they still would have been in the playoff. But like someone like the 6 or the 8, if they win out, still have a pretty decent shot not to get in it. But with a 12, they pretty easily would. So it's, I mean, that'll help some of the issue in college where, like, you know, one early loss can doom your entire season, but still, it'll still be a lot tighter than any of those super long season sports. And then like with college basketball, it's like with the Grizz, like the Big Sky, for example, like you have to win the conference tournament to get in. But it's like, when there's at-large bids in the bigger conferences like ACC and Big 10, Big 12, all that, like, you know, if you have a decent strength of schedule, you can have a pretty poor season to make the tournament, and you go on a crazy run, all of a sudden you can still win a national championship. So that's like, yeah, football doesn't really, at any level, have anything like that. Here's the moment that sucks about power seats. If you're tall and you need it all the way back, then you need to get in through the back when you're vacuuming. Because, yeah, I'm doing a kind of a quick vacuum. I'm not doing a very thorough job because Megan's going to be driving it a ton, and, you know, we're about to winter when snow and stuff makes your feet sticky. But, yeah, I don't know if I got this. Clearly the inlet. Megan, like 2 or 3 times, I think almost every time she's ever used this, has put it on the wrong one. It's kind of cute and funny. But, yeah, then obviously the next step will be to wash the outside because the dust, and then you get the frost on the dust, and then the bugs. I think most of those are actually from Idaho, but... yeah, it's kind of funny because, like, the other sheet I can just kind of, like, because this only has one power sheet, I can just go, whoo, whoo. It's like, yeah, if you're kind of like middling height where you don't have to move it all the way, it isn't as bad, but I wouldn't know about that. That's another thing if I wasn't crazy, because even doing an unthorough job, I do that because nobody rides there, because with this seat all the way back, Nathan's tall enough that, like, you know, because I have to have it all the way back, Nathan can't really sit there. Like in the truck, there's enough leg room, he can fit anywhere. And he can fit there, but he kicks the crap out of the back seat, so he's required to ride over there.
Nanyat, are you being lazy? Oh, you were supposed to keep doing that.
He had his head down and just his tail was wagging, and that was it. Okay, this is back to my point I've been talking about, like, in my last, like, 6 vlogs. Because what even happened? Because the Bengals were, like, at the 20. They should have had a shoe-in field goal, and then all of a sudden I come back in, and there's a Steeler making a crazy catch. And then that kick looked bad from the get-go. It was, like, really horribly wobbly. But, yeah, now all of a sudden you've got a miss. Now you have the Bengals with a shot. to have 2 or 3 decent length plays and they're back in field goal range. Okay, so this is kind of interesting because the Texans-Colts one I mentioned ended up ending in a 20-20 tie. And after that missed field goal, the Bengals really didn't do anything and ended up punting. And it's like, unless they can get another, I mean, actually after that miss, that has to shake his confidence. So, I mean, like, they have to get another 10 yards to have a pretty long field goal. So we might end up with 2 different 20-20 ties, which is one of the things where it's like, okay, football isn't that interesting. Because that's, like, one of the things people don't like about soccer. And, that, like, hockey isn't as bad as soccer. But they need to go to, like, college-style rules. Because anybody that doesn't know what college is, you get a possession at the 25 going in. The coin toss determines you get to pick which, whether you want to be on offense or defense, and which end of the stadium you want to play in. But, yeah, because, like, I mean, the NFL, the overtime rules keep getting tweaked. Then they shortened it so that they're not extending play time as much. So it's like, it's just fascinating because you've got, like, you know, like the things that that happen in the playoffs with, like, the Bills-Chiefs game. And, like, whoever wins the coin toss wins the game. It's actually not as frequently as you think, but, like, the Bills get knocked out of the playoffs twice because of that. But, yeah, it's like, they need to fix overtime. That is one of the things that, like, I get why people... Because if he ends up missing this, then we have 2 different 20-20 ties in the first week, both of which are division games. And that's the thing. Like, I remember it'd been, like, because it was before all the rule changes, when it was, like, even a field goal won it right from the get-go. It was sudden death, so it was, like, pretty rare for a game to even get close to a tie. And it was, like, Eagles and somebody. And the tie they got them in the playoffs, because technically that gives you a better winning percentage, because then you have 1 less game, which is 1 less loss. But, yeah, just their overtime is kind of, especially because, like, people are like, oh, don't do college. It's like, well, college, you're guaranteed a winner. You know, it's not like this where it's like we already have 1 tie. If he misses, we have 2 ties. And then in the playoffs, it's like whoever wins the coin toss still has a really good chance to just not even give the other team a chance when it's the playoffs. But now they fix that. But then it's like if both teams score, then you're right back. Whoever won the coin toss, if they get the ball, then score. Technically, still the team with the coin toss gets the 3rd possession. So they also, it's right back to, oh, whoever won the coin toss won the game. If it's all 3 or scores. Ooh, he almost got that block. That one actually went in finally for somebody. Too bad the garbage Steelers won. I was going to say, because, like, Steelers... It's close between Steelers and Niners for the most annoying fan base in football. And then those 2 are both in the top, like, 5 or 10 in all of sports. Here's another fun TRX observation, because you probably noticed it was the car parked there, pointed in. And it's like, because with turning radius of the TRX, like, no way this would have worked. I just backed to get this way. And then also, like, fitting in behind my dad's Blazer to wash, like... And then for some reason he wanted that out. You know, he's got 4-wheelers and all sorts of new toys, but... I mean, I guess, I don't know. I guess you wouldn't want to just, like, have its last little bit of life just be sitting there rotting. And, I mean, like, because that was, like, we were talking about that, trying to get him to get rid of that trike and then his smaller bike. Like, it's very difficult. Like, he likes to keep and use things to their bitter end. They must have started making plates a lot chintzier, because I know the front of this is really chipped up, but look at that. Never seen that, even on ones that go the full 5 years until they force you to replace them. But that's another thing I found really funny, is the, like, I don't know, they're obviously just doing it to collect money, but I mean, that makes it a tiny bit more justified when they're like, oh yeah, $5 extra because you have to change your plate every 5 years. Also, my terror I was having about leaving Megan with the truck, I discovered that earlier, and I just noticed this. But the funny thing is, I text her to be like, oh hey, what'd you do? But in reality, since I realize 80% of people are douchebags, she parks in a lot of tight places, and then also she works at a hospital. And I probably established this by now, but I really don't like nor trust the medical field. So it's like that's someone that I would 100% see, like, if they hit it, like folding the mirror back out so it's not turned in and driving off. But yeah, it's kind of funny because it's like, surprisingly, actually, I'm immediately giving her the benefit of the doubt and expecting it to have been someone in a lot. But if she responds to the text and is like, oh yeah, sorry, I didn't think it did anything, then I'm going to be terrified about her driving the TRX home. But this is also funny, I set her coffee cup on there when we're switching vehicles, and it did something to the roof where it's holding more water. But yeah, that's a little disappointing. It seems like it'd be kind of hard to change because things like that have no slack on the wires ever. But you'd have to take the mirror off, detach the wires, then put that new piece on, then put the mirror back on. But it's not anything horrible, but it like gouged the crap out of my finger when I was washing the underside of the mirror. So that's how I even figured it out. Or actually, I think what actually got my finger is as I pushed, this popped open a little bit and pinched me, like this crack right here. But yeah, that sucks. I guess the one silver lining is that's like, they didn't crease it, and that's just where like plastic rubbed on. I don't really know how that super scrapey bug thing didn't get it off, but like it didn't crease the fender, and if it did very, very, very minimally. We'll have to see once it dries, because obviously the water's catching that little strip of plastic, so it's looking kind of goofy. But I guess that's a silver lining, because then would be no chance at needing body work. So my dad's pretty badass, because we put this in here. Yes, and this had the cassette player, which couldn't hook into that, so he built like a neat little shelf. Like he just basically took like this where the tape player was, obviously, and still left this shelf and built a little shelf in there, like for a small gun, like the Bond Arms pistol or something like that. That'll fit in there nice. Apparently Nathan thinks it's his shelf. Selfish little punk. Yeah, I was right. It doesn't even look like it scratched it. I took my shirt and got the plastic off. But yeah, Megan just texted back and she said she assumes it's from the trash can, but I don't know. That'd be kind of hard to do, because to have it hit here, it would hit here first. You would think, because the only part of the can that comes out is like up about here, where like the lid comes out. Like, I guess maybe there is. I'll have to look at it when I get home. There's a little lip. Just going for bringing the trash down to my grandma's garbage and going around the block, and the dog is a little overexcited, so he thinks he rules the entire vehicle.
Jumping right by you there, bro. You knocked the mailbox over.
You're fighting for window space there. Careful, bud. You don't want to cover up the ones that are not. Because, okay, so we get like moles and stuff, so there's always various reasons for holes. And I saw these and I was assuming that's what it was. But then when you look at them, the pattern is definitely not, like, that's not a coincidence, because then once you get up here, it's a deer track. It's kind of amazing it's sunk, because that's not a very big deer. It doesn't look like it, at least, unless there was more than one. Another interesting thing is, like, now that he's playing t-ball, because Megan's left-handed, my grandma is left-handed. I have a cousin that's left-handed and an uncle that's left-handed, and all those weird freaks. So I'm like, yeah, it'd be cool if you get into being an NFL quarterback. But left-handed quarterbacks, like, the last one that was relevant was Tebow, and he was only relevant because he was like a goody-good and, like, was not good at quarterback, so everybody that understands football hated him. I wasn't paying attention. I don't remember if I didn't notice I think he just swung left-handed again. But he's kind of switch hitting in the T-ball, but it seems like he's hitting better left-handed, which is unfortunate for him. Although, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird because it seems like he does a lot of things right-handed, but swinging a bat, he does switch. It's like, yeah, I can see there's left-handed again, and I mean, it will be interesting to see what happens. And if this gets edited and posted before, like if you're interested in the boats situation and didn't read the comments on the last boat video, out of the parts, they said there was 2 parts they were waiting on the manufacturer, and they said, oh yeah, if something's waiting on manufacturer, it's 3 to 5 days. I realize I didn't get this hood on here right. But yeah, they say it's 3 to 5 days. And at this point, that was like 3 weeks ago. So we'll see what ends up happening there, but I'm getting quite frustrated because it's like now at this point, I was thinking about like, okay, I'll cancel it and see if I can find them somewhere else. But Crowley Marine is like, no, we lied about the thing, then sent a thing saying that we don't know the dates. I will in a second. That we don't know when we're going to get them, and we'll keep you updated. But it's like, if they would have came quick, we could have been boating like the last like 2 or 3 weeks. But now, unless I get here like tomorrow, it's gonna be too cool to boat. So it's like I kind of, cause yeah, but that's what I was getting at there before I tangented about them lying on that other thing. Cause now they're like, it's preparing for shipment. You can't cancel it. It's like, if there's some stuff that isn't even there, it can't really be preparing unless the couple of items that are in stock are sitting there in a box waiting. But yeah, because it's like now at this point, it's like it's kind of pointless to cancel them because it's probably like now we have till spring for the parts to get here because like the boating season's over enough where I don't think, you know, like I mean I guess if they, like I said, if they showed up like in the next week or two, we might be able to go test it out. But I guess we'll see. They'll probably wait and show up in like December when it's like for sure it's not going to be nice enough to go boat. As a matter of fact, a lot of the lakes will be starting to freeze. It's funny because you know, sparkling water, that's pretty similar to what White Claw is, but this stuff's disgusting and I do like White Claw. It's pretty much just like it's sparkling water with no flavor, and I think like isn't San Pellegrino one of the good versions of it? So like that's not a good sign for just plain old sparkling water. Might be interesting with booze in it, which I might do at some point because there's a couple left. So this is kind of interesting. Is that tree here by the boat grows these little berry things that probably shouldn't even be eaten. They're not good at all. And this one grows crab apples. We've made crab apple wine before. This one also grows weird little berries. But this one here is interesting though, because like for 2 or 3 years it didn't produce any fruit. And it might be because I trimmed so much dead off of it, which I did miss some up high, I didn't realize. But this one's producing apples again, and I think like if they had like another month, I think they'd be like full on red apples. But as you can see, there's a core from me having just eaten one. Those ones are super good. They're probably a touch sweeter than a regular apple. I think I made pies out of them before. And then we got this one. This one's in pretty bad shape. I really, really missed that one big dead piece because I could have taken it off way down here at the base. And it would have freed up the tree a bunch. But these ones are also really good because these ones are really sweet. They're kind of like, they're just, oh look, more deer tracks. But yeah, these ones are really, really sweet. That's probably what the deer have been here for, because that's what I was going to say. I've seen them here a lot in the winter and stuff. But it seems like once it gets hot, they don't really come around as much. But yeah, these ones are pretty sweet too. No, I don't know. Those ones over on this tree here are still my favorite. That's another one of those things that's interesting with nature. That's another spot where the pine tree like left a spot for the apple tree. I like the one tree in the front. But it's too bad because with the sun, because as you can see, even midsummer, it's not far enough to the north to get sun to that very much. So I think that's why that one's kind of petering out, which makes it really weird that this one is, because the sun like midsummer is at most like overhead, and then like once you get in the winter, it kind of comes like right, you know, it's like kind of more like that's actually about where it is now, maybe. So I was thinking I was exaggerating when I was saying it was kind of further south. This is another thing I kind of forgot, is this tree, like, because that's another thing. They used to get really red, like full, like store-bought apples level red. But you can kind of see the ones that, like earlier in the day, can kind of get some sun here because they're way redder than the ones down here. And like the ones even on that side of the tree are redder than the ones that are down here in the shade. There's enough there to make some stuff though, for sure. There used to be a sidewalk between these 2 yards. And leave it to Nathan to have found 2 of the tiny little spots of concrete still showing to color. This also shows how much nature will take over, because you can kind of see that one pad at the end.
I shoveled that when it was
like,
first winter.
But yeah, it was like, I don't think it was a full sidewalk. I think it was like like more like a path, where it was like there was one here, one there, you can tell. It's kind of interesting how much nature will take back over. Okay, the crab apples off the crab apple tree are the best they've been in a while. Actually, way sweeter than normal.
That was a crab apple tree over there. Actually bad at all.
I guess with the thing I just told Nathan, I mean, I'm assuming everybody knows, but these like little tiny apples that don't get very big are crab apples. Here's the most annoying thing about being bald.
What?
The stubble. Make your head like Velcro. So we've been getting Nathan riding a bike, and he was having a lot of trouble turning. He came straight into the field, turned at the fence, and I might need to put, I don't know, we were messing with the seat so he can touch the ground better when he tips over. But now it's almost too low where he's almost kneeing himself when he pedals. But yeah, he made a couple of turns. Progress. So nature's kind of intense. From cracks like these little buggers here, those little tiny cracks, just those size. This much root had gotten into this corner where he didn't play as much. Because I promised him I'd play with him. And then like when he stopped playing baseball, I went to fix my mom's phone. And afterwards, I was like, hey, I'll still play with you. What do you want to do? And he's like, play in the sandbox. So then, like as I started to realize it's really solid in this corner. Okay, we're trying to find treasure for Captain Hook. But this corner was like really solid, so I'm like, I'm gonna dig. And then I started counting roots, and that's like, I guess I did like here. So I did like maybe a quarter of the sandbox. Him and the dog kind of go over here a lot, so I'm probably close to done with where roots would be, but yeah, that's definitely pretty intense. Nature can take back over quite quickly. But yeah, because you look at like how much moisture it holds, and then like how cool it stays even when the sun's like cooking the rest of the grass. Makes sense that if there was any way for it to get there, that roots would start getting in there. So nature's very smart, because flies start gathering around the door when it starts getting cool at night, and this fly, like they fly around like all right in here, and that spider put a web in a perfect place. Any fly like try to come up and around is gonna go right into its web. This is back to my point about the garage. Like I've vlogged on this street before, and there was someone parked down there changing their oil, like parked on this slope. Usually just in case you need to put it on ramps, the drain plug's in the back. So I mean, it isn't gonna make oil not get out, but like, that's another back to my like with house purchasing things I was talking about earlier. Like, how could you not prioritize a garage or at least like a good driveway? Like you see people washing their cars in like a spot where the silver Rams parked, and yeah, it's crazy to me. Like I mean, if you're gonna want to do any of your own work or clean your own vehicles, like how could you not prioritize a garage or at least a driveway? All right, so I'm pulling back in. I'm gonna go check my truck. I'm obviously kidding. This is just it's kind of funny to make it a comedy thing though. Well, if she edits this part out. All right,
It's fine.
don't go blocking anything. You're gonna be blocking something. Let's make sure. All right, we just discovered she has a problem with mirrors. Let's check those. She can't see my grin.
You want to know how fast I came in the alley?
30?
2 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's exactly the problem if you're afraid of the alley. So throughout the day, I've done a couple of vlogs with football, and this is kind of more team specific, or I guess because Dak didn't play at all in the preseason, comes out looking like trash, and in a team sport like football, where you got to have some timing with your receivers, that like because they mentioned like Tom Brady was taking 11 days off in August when preseason games were happening, still played a drive. Tom Brady, the greatest player in the history of the NFL, still played a preseason drive. Dak didn't even play one. Comes out, plays like garbage, gets hurt. I mean, that's unfortunate but then Cooper Rush at this point they're still, well, it's probably over actually, but I'm a little behind real time. But in the drive Cooper Rush played, like he played better than Dak did, and it's like if like the last throw on that fourth down hit the receiver in the hands and he got hit, but at the same time, like if he's a little stronger, he could bring it down. But yeah, if he would have brought that down, I mean, all of a sudden they're almost about to get a touchdown without Dak, and yeah, like it's just like not giving a guy even 1 or 2 drives during the preseason to get some timing. But then also, if you're a Cowboys fan, you will find this kind of just like me. I'm pretty sure, because like when I was a little kid, they were winning Super Bowls and such, and both sides of the ball were good. But since like as that faded out, like in the late 90s, the Cowboys have not been carried by their defense at all ever. Since then, like if Romo had the defense they have right now, he'd have a Super Bowl, probably more than one. And I mean, a lot of people hate on Romo, but 100%, like, if you think that isn't the case, you're insane. Because it's like, but I mean, up until that one touchdown, the Cowboys held them to field goals every single time. I mean, they had it inside the 10 twice, and they held them to field goal attempts. Like, I mean, I probably even mentioned it on this vlog. The Cowboys game when they played the Broncos in Dallas, and it was 51-48. Romo put up 48 points. If you put up 48 points, you should never lose. Your defense has to be pathetic to lose that game. And, like, that's the thing. Like, because, you know, Romo was putting up like 30 points a game and still missing the playoffs because the defense was so bad his whole time. But, especially if, like, Micah Parsons stays around and, like, the way Diggs has played this game where he's not giving up the deep ball. He hasn't gotten any picks, obviously, but he's not giving up the deep ball. Like, if them two can play really, like, the way they look, then, like, their defense might be good for years, and we might go to an exact opposite of Romo, where we have some great defensive players that have earned, like, that actually, you know, are carrying the team. But if the offense is trash, we're going to have the exact opposite of the Romo era, where it's like, Micah deserves to have an offense that can keep up with him, and, like, or Micah and, like, I mean, even DeMarcus Lawrence. But, yeah, it's pretty, I don't know. It's just football, like, that's like I was saying earlier, how interesting football is. Because it's like something as simple as, like, oh, don't let Dak play even one drive in the preseason. And this is another reason, like, running quarterbacks aren't as good. It's like, yeah, their play-making ability's cool, but they take more hits. And the thing is, since he broke his ankle, they treat him like he's a little tiny China cup laying in the street during the running of the Bulls. Like, they baby him. Like, if he would have played... And the thing is, too, is he lost his previous... I mean, CeeDee Lamb was probably about equal, but he lost his previous number one receiver. And then Cedric Wilson was great, too. They lose him. Gallup isn't back yet. He has a group of receivers that have almost no regular season experience. And you don't even give him one preseason drive to go build some chemistry. I mean, is Mike McCarthy horrible? Incredibly horrible. And then still, I mean, I think they're at like 9 or 10 penalties. So still, he has no discipline and has no idea how to play a preseason. Like, how he got a Super Bowl, I can tell you how. Aaron. That guy had nothing to do with it. Not a thing. And, yeah, he's terrible. Okay, I went back a touch because they were showing, like, because this is, okay, I'm assuming this is all from when Dak's in. This is a great play on defense. Horrible Dak throw. They're calling that the Bucs secondary. That one wasn't a really bad throw. I mean, that one was high a little bit. But yeah, like, I mean, the Bucs defense did good, but at the same time, Dak had, like, Cooper Rush only threw like 8 passes and he played way better than Dak. Dak had a good 8 to 10 passes that were more behind than, like, people that think they should still wear a Nazi armband. But yeah, the one final thought, the drive when I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe they could save it. Tom Brady so rarely makes a horrible mistake, threw a horrible ball. Like, you could even see him lipping like, that's my fault. Didn't capitalize on it at all. Tom Brady, for once, makes a terrible mistake. Where even I'm like, wow. Like, I don't know, like, you know, obviously I can't remember every throw he's ever thrown, but I'm like, that's one of the worst throws I've seen Tom Brady make. Or the worst decisions, not necessarily worst throws. What'd they do with it? 3 and out. Or 4 and out. I think they went for it on 4th down, but yeah. It's horrible.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next one.